Hey YouTube, welcome back to UniX TCG, and today we are actually going to talk about another deck, a top tier contender from OP04 King of Intrigue, and that is going to be green purple Doflamingo. So just like we did with blue black Rebecca, we're going to dive into the leader, why this deck works, the key cards, and if the video gets up to 100 likes, we'll do gameplay sooner than later. Otherwise, I'm going to rotate through my other card games because we got a lot of stuff to do on the channel with the second set releasing of Battle Spirits, as well as the news for Dragon Ball Fusion World, as well as the new set Critical Blow. We got so much to do here, but the important part is that we are still trying to grow. We're getting to 5,000 subscribers on this channel, so if you haven't joined already, maybe this is the time to join the UniX fam and see what more this thing has to offer. That being said, as per usual, if you like the video, like it, you know what I mean? So it trends, comments, so I can respond to comments, we can have a little dialogue going. And if you're feeling a little frisky, go down, check the link, tree, so you can see all the different corners of Immerse X, my other channels, my Discord, Twitter, all these things. So with that being said, let's hop into Doffy. So let's talk about the leader himself. First and foremost, we've got Donquixote Doflamingo, 5k, 4 life as a normal attacking dual color leader should, and then at end of your turn set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active. Now this is pretty cool. If you play Dragon Ball Super, you know that this is the SS3 Goku effect, the Gamma effect. Like, having extra Dawn open for your defense is very, very cool. However, in this game, there isn't as much counterplay or playing your opponent's turn as you know, Dragon Ball Z, so, or even like things like Battle Spirits. So you set 2 open. But if you clog up your deck with too many event cards, you're not going to be able to make a good push. And so this is a very precarious way to build your deck. Obviously, Punk Gibson, Thunder Bagua, and another card that we're going to be getting up to are very, very good choices. But yeah, just know that like this isn't like a defend all day because it's only 2. And so that's going to be essentially 1 spell during your opponent's turn, 1 event during your opponent's turn, and you can't oversaturate your deck with events. Now, the reason why this deck works is actually the color combination. It's not so much as the Donquixote deck itself, just a few cards, but it's more the fact that with green and purple, you're able to use both sides of the film package. Some in green with the Straw Hats, and a bunch in purple between the red film, the Z film, you know, the Stampede film. So we're gonna get into those. The first one of these cards is Nami. You guys should be familiar with this from the set 2 as well as Film Kid decks. On play and when attacking, you can tap 1 to look at the top 3 cards of your deck, reveal up to 1 film type card, no color restriction, other than Nami, and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So like I said, this is going to be able to search out both parts of your film deck, and that is going to be very, 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 very good. Next, we're going to move over to Brook. Brook is just a 4 cost that when he gets played, you can play a 3 or less film or Straw Hat Crew type character from your hand. So realistically, he's just going to be something you cheat out and then cheat out more stuff, which is how the film deck operates. Build up this massive board off of really 1 summon of the 7 cost Luffy and then go crazy. When you cascade correctly with just 8 Dawn, you can play Luffy, and then you could play Brook, which they can play Nami from your hand. There's 3 bodies for 8 Dawn, or for 7 Dawn. Tap an 8 Dawn, and then you can search your top 3 for another film card. And then Doffy will untap 2 at the end of your turn. So very, very cost efficient. Speaking of that Luffy, we get the last piece of the green film package, and that is the Luffy blocker. He's just a blocker, and on play you can play film card or Straw Hat Crew type character with cost of 4 or less from your hand, allowing you to do some pretty cool plays with the cards that were aforementioned, but also some cards that are coming up. The next card is Buena Fiesta. This is the top 5 searcher for the film archetype that came out in the Shanks/Uta starter deck. And yeah, this guy is going to be able to search the Straw Hat Crew films cards or this film, the purple ones. And so he's an all-around good searcher. Also a 2K. Hate it when they put these 2 effects on 1 because you definitely want to play this card, but it is what it is. Crucial card to the deck. Next, we're going over to the Uta blocker. Never stop being a good card. Purple is just not really a good color to play, and this card can be cheated out by the 7-drop Luffy. You can play him, then play a 4 cost or less film card, which will be this, and then you put 2 blockers into play for 7 Dawn. This one is a pseudo double blocker because you can block and then tap something else with a cost of 5 or less by minusing 1 Dawn. So you're starting to see how the power plays go. You're really setting up a wall with this deck. Next, we're gonna go to the draw of this deck, which is Guild Tesoro. He comes down, and yeah, when he does attack, you can minus 2 Dawn to just draw 2 cards. So he's going to be one of those cards where if you do not check him, all the cards that you minused from the film package just blowing up on the field is going to be recouped by Guild. And now we're going to go over to the Donquixote package, which is going to be sugar. For you guys that have played other games like Dragon Ball, you're going to notice this is the Patine-like card. It's a 2-cost, 0 attack, 1 counter play, but on the opponent's turn, once per turn, when your opponent plays a character card, if your leader is a Donquixote Pirates card, you can rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters, then rest this card. On play, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. Now this is actually interesting because with a lot of decks, the sequencing is going to work to where you're going to be able to play around this. Like, you don't usually use up your Dawn before you start swinging because you never want a trigger to affect what you just played. However, what this will do is allow you to, it makes it very hard for your opponent to play blockers on the end of their turn because they will play a blocker and you can immediately tap it and either swing with it, swing onto it with a weenie or swing past it. So this is going to change up how your opponent has to sequence and is generally a high priority card to get off the field. That being said, it is weak to Marco, Vista, Fire Fist, so there's a lot of cards that just kind of get this out of the way, but it warrants that heat, no pun intended. Then we're going to move over to Diamante, 5 cost blocker, 6k power, and 1 counter power. Blocker and then Dawn X1, end of your turn. If you have 2 or more active Dawn, set this character active. Since you can set which effects activate first, your leader on your end phase will open up your Dawn, and then this guy will untap himself to block again. Very, very nice. And then you have the boss himself. This is 10 drop Doffy, 10k for 10, but the real cool part about it is on play, a total up to 3 of your Dawn, a total up to 3 of your opponent's rested characters or leaders do not become active during your opponent's next refresh phase. So if your opponent just tried to make a good push turn, their leader sideways, 2 of their big swingers are sideways, you can play Doflamingo and block those. And we're going to talk a little later about how that is an advantageous landslide. So with that being said, we are now going to go over to the event cards. Some of these you should already know from set 1, set 2, but we got Paradise Waterfall. 1 cost, if you, counter your leader or one of your characters gains 2k power for the battle, and then set one of your characters to active. This generally allows a blocker to block twice. If they swing for 7 and you block with Luffy and go up to 9 and then untap them, they have to kind of think about how they're going to push through again. So this gives you some longevity, and it's also good use of the extra Dawn that Doflamingo will give you. Followed that, we've got Punk Gibson, probably the best green event in the game. I mean, actually, I don't even think it's just the best green event in the game. 2 cost, your characters, well, your leader up to 1 of your characters gains 4k power, and then you tap something. You rest something that costs 4 or less on your opponent's side. If you get the trigger, you just rest any of your opponent's characters regardless of cost. Very, very, very good card. Very good card to have in your hand just at the end of every turn when you untap 2. It's just very solid in general. And then the trigger is game ending. There are just a lot of games where you need the exact amount of attacks and just a singular Punk Gibson will stop that from happening. So the next card we're going to talk about, sorry this is in Japanese, but I'm going to give you guys the actual reading. It's called Spiderweb. So Spiderweb says it is a 2 cost, and it says counter up to 1 of your leaders or character cards gain 4k power, then set up to 1 of your characters to active. Trigger, up to 1 of your leaders gain 2000 power for the turn. So this is actually really crazy. If this is triggered, you're gaining like a double radical beam or a double guard point off of trigger. 2k is amazing because your leader is now 7k. You can defend up to 9 or up to 8ks with 2ks. You're a thicker white beard at that point. However, the other cool thing is that this is a Paradise Waterfall on steroids. If you block with something and then you boost it up by 4k and then set it back to active to block again, that is a monstrous W. Very, very, very good card to have. Now after that, we're going to move over to Thunder Bagua, which is going to be the last card we have to talk about. Thunder Bagua just set 1 counter, 2 cost, your leader character gains plus 4k. And then if you have 2 or less life cards, add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and rest it. So then the trigger is just adding 1 Dawn untapped. So this is a good card to have in 3, maybe 4, because the trigger is really good. The trigger will help you ramp and get to your bigger plays faster, which is always very, very good in a deck with such a defined boss. But at the same time, this card is just good in general because it's a 4-cost leader. You're gonna hit that 4 life leader. You're gonna hit that 2 life threshold very, very easily, and then be able to recoup your energy using this card, your Dawn. So those are the cards that we are looking at for this. And now I want to talk about some of the synergies in the deck. But before we do that, I want to have a message from my sponsor, Mystic TCG, the best place to pre-order your sealed product or buy sealed product for One Piece, Dragon Ball, Battle Spirits, Yu-Gi-Oh, you name it, it's on that site. So let's actually roll the ad real quick, and then I will be right back to discuss the ins and outs of the Doflamingo. So let's talk about Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all your TCG needs. On the site, you can buy or pre-order plenty of sealed product for plenty of games. Just make sure though, if you're pre-ordering, to give it 3 to 4 months in advance to start looking, because sometimes the product is indeed hot, supply and demand, you know? And then if you want to buy singles, go on tcgplayer.com. There's going to be a link in the description where you can buy for the best value. And if you want to sell cards or collections, you can message them on their Facebook site so you can get the best bang for your buck on any type of way you want to buy or sell cards. And then while you're at it, you can use the code UNIXTCG at checkout to get even more of a discount. So hey, what are you waiting for? Check out Mystic TCG today. Some of you guys might be wondering, how does this deck work? Why does it work? Well, one, like I said before, it's the mixture of the film package. Both of the film packages had something missing from them. The green film package could just vomit a plethora of bodies on the board, but usually panned out with no hand by the middle/end of the match, making it very easy to push once you got through the blockers, or if you could bypass them via things like Diablo Jumble or like Rush Luffy. However, the purple film package had a lot more defense. Uta was just an amazing blocker. It had a top 5 searcher that only cost 1. It also had cards like Guild, which could draw a ton. And now that you have a deck that can utilize all of the film cards, you have a monster in its own right. The green spitting out bodies, Gil Tesoro recovering said bodies, Thunder Bagua getting more energy to get into these big ramp plays sooner than later, and then Punk Gibson just carrying the defense on its back along with Spider's Web. You've got a very, very interesting lineup of blockers between a 7k, between Uta, and you're able to defend yourself quite well between these blockers and the pressure that you're able to put on your opponent. Past that, untapping 2 each turn, you're allowed to utilize 1 Thunder Bagua, 1 Spider's Web, or 1 Punk Gibson a turn just by tapping out, really. Now, once you get like places in the game where you might have a couple in hand, you can leave 2 Dawn up and then untap 2, you're really cooking. So your defensive steps get very, very nasty later on. Past that, when you look at the Doflamingo package, the Donquixote package in green, Sugar is an excellent pseudo floodgate, allowing you to control the pace of the game. When you play Sugar out, it makes it very hard for your opponent to rush you, because you will always be able to play or use Sugar's once per turn effect on their rush card to make sure that it does not get to do what it was supposed to do. So that's a very good anti-aggro type thing. Even not anti-aggro, your opponent's got to play a card, and if they have a blocker out, like, they may be able to sequence around you in order to not have their main swingers get tapped, but when they do play a card, you do have Sugar on the board. And so if they're out of swingers and they want to play a card, you can tap down the blocker. So it really forces them to play things in a different sequence. Lastly, you have Doflamingo himself, a card that is able to hit the board, stop your opponent from pushing, but just like all big boss cards in this game so far, he is most deadly when he is seen in multiple copies back to back. Because you play Doflamingo the first time and your opponent just knows they can't push very hard next turn without rushes. You play Doflamingo a second time, you now have a 10k body on board, and you just stopped your opponent from not only pressing you, but having a lot of things on board that could probably dawn up and swing on Doflamingo. So it's a very, very, very good space to be in. You see him a third time, and that's probably a wrap. You've got 2 10k swings, and you just tapped on your opponent for another turn. They can't really operate off of that. And then last but not least, they have to figure out how to not die the following turn, because 4 10k swings or higher. That's a lot to deal with without blockers on board. So that's pretty much how the deck works. Like I said, give this video 100 likes, and I know you guys can do it because way more than 100 people watch these videos, and we will actually do the gameplay sooner than later. I'll do it out of rotation of my card games. But yeah, I hope you guys learned something about the Doflamingo deck. We'll go into a lot of more things in detail as the set comes closer to coming out and as we get our hands on the cards. But for now, stay frosty. If you guys are going to be in any events, I think this weekend I'll be in the online regionals, as our online treasure cup, as well as the offline regionals in Florida in 2 weeks. So thank you guys. If you like the content, think about hitting the subscribe button, like the video, and I want to hear your thoughts on the Doflamingo deck in set 4. Thanks, and I'll see you next time inside Join Universe X.